I'm Derek Schwanenbeck from the Sandhills of Nebraska. I'm a rancher, uh, but technically I consider myself a professional grazer. And today I want to talk about rest versus recovery and why it matters. So we're here at the National Grazing Lands Coalition, and we all understand overgrazing. Um, we know overgrazing. We've studied it. And what we know is that overgrazing is bad, right? I mean, that's it's bad. So when we're starting to learn about overgrazing, it's all about us too many animals. We got too many animals out there, or we're gonna growth a little there. We got animals are in one place too long, and so it's too many animals. They're there for too long, and it is a function of time. But overgrazing is about how much time do we allow the plants to recover? Did we have proper recovery? Did we take that second bite and or did we take the third bite? Or were we there all season taking all kinds of bites? And well, then we know overgrazing is about management, or not overgrazing is about management. And our best management is to see if our rangeland, if our plants, our pastures are fully recovered before we graze them again. And of course, Mother Nature bats last. She's going to throw us a storm that wrecks our fences. Cows get back in and regraze, or a swarm of grasshoppers are going to come and graze it to the dirt and make us look like fools. That's not really what I want to talk about. My focus, I want to look at recovery holistically. From the ecologic standpoint, obviously, we care about our soil, our rangelands, but I also want to talk about the physiologic, and that's plants, obviously, all the microbiome that's going on down below, but also our microbiome and our bodies and psychologic. Uh, what is psychologic recovery? And so first, it's all relative, right? And I'm the most hypocritical person to be even talking about this subject called recovery or rest. I'm mostly German, and so I need 110% efficiency, 24/7, 365. It's got to be running all out all the time, right? Or the little voices in my head start screaming. And the other part is I'm a little bit Scottish. So if my beautiful wife Lisa is to come to me and say, "Hey, Derek, I think you're working too hard. We need to slow down a little bit," I'm going to give her an attitude. I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm in charge here. We got to get this done. We got to keep moving forward." And I'm just hoping there's somebody out there that can relate to that, just a little bit. It's we're talking about energy, and that's what drives everything in our world. And it's simple math. If we take energy out, we're going to need to put energy back in. And we'll just go with set stock grazing versus mob grazing. We've got we've got energy going out. Maybe it's taking a long time, maybe it's taking a short time. It might be the same amount of energy, but it takes time to put that energy back in. And if we're in a brittle environment, like if it doesn't rain, some people don't go back to the pasture for 14 months or longer. And we're a non-brittle environment, which I'm not very familiar with, where it you count the days that it doesn't rain versus counting the days that it did. But that might be 14 days to have proper recovery and be heading back into the pastures, or they're getting ahead of us. We've got too little sunlight, and our Antarctica, the North Pole, those are deserts, right? Lots of moisture, but it's deserts. And so we could have too little sunlight, or just a cloudy summer, or too much sunlight. We know what drought is, but it could be too hot and too hot for too long. We're not recovering correctly if we have too little or too much. Uh, Rain, too little, that drought again, and the brittle environments. Or we could be, let's just, that was just, we need to stop for a little bit and think about North Carolina, these hurricanes that wiped us out. Too much rain, and what that's like to have your entire operation just swept down the mountain. Um, we care about how long it takes for our range to recover, but how long does it take for to psychologically recover from something like that? Well, one of the best examples I know of to talk about rest versus recovery, and I'd go with we had the Olympics last summer, and let's use these are just amazing world class athletes. They train and they train, and then they have to really perform. But a marathon runner, they're out there what a little over 2 hours, and a 100-yard dash is a little under 10 seconds. And how long does it take for them to recover? We could rest 2 hours. The 100-yard dash athlete is probably ready to go again, might run faster. And that's normal to have a finals later in the day. But a marathon runner is not going to be able to perform at its peak after 2 hours of rest. And so there's rest, sure, but is there full recovery? And that's a big deal. Well, let's keep working on athletes because they push these bodies pretty hard. And too little rest. Let's one of my friends said a fantastic son was doing really good in cross country and ready to go at the start of the season. First race, personal best. Second race next week, a little slower. Third week, slower yet. They go to the doctor. The doctor is like, you know what? You're in an adolescent body that's growing. You're pushing yourself to the limit. You're not recovering enough. You're going backwards. And that's how obvious is that to most of the soils across our country or world, or our rangelands, our pastures. We know if we aren't recovering enough that our performance is going to go down. But let's take one of those athletes and they break a leg and they're in a cast for a few months. What's going to happen with too much rest? Those muscles are going to atrophy. They're going to get weaker if they're not challenged. And we look at our pastures, we've got, we've heard this. We need to get the animals off that ground so it can recover. Well, too much rest. And all of a sudden, the grass and the plants are going backwards themselves if they're not challenged, if they don't get a workout now and then. So too much rest is also bad. Maybe we reach a state of recovery, but then we start going backwards again. And then I already talked about training too much or training too little, but maybe I'm talking about our brains. If we're not pushing our brains to learn more, but then who am I talking to? We're here for a reason, and it's probably not just the good food. We're all trying to learn and better ourselves. But are we training too much? Possible. How much can we absorb today? I mean, how many topics are there to look at? So now let's talk about a little bit about sleep or more on psychological recovery. How about, let's go with this one. Trying to sleep after finding out that a loved one was in a fender bender. Okay, well, let's a little context. Insurance is going to cover everything. No one got hurt. It was just a little bit of stress. All right, great. Now compare that to finding out that because of that fender bender, one of our loved ones is in a critical care unit. Who's sleeping now? And how long is it going to take to recover? Yeah, okay. Electric cars. Electric cars are a big thing. Love them, hate them, whatever. They take time to recharge. And some of that is a rapid recharge. Some of it's slow, but it is energy. And I love Stephen Covey has a great example talking about were you ever too busy to put gas in your car? And I'm that guy. It's like all the time. And so when you run out of gas, it's exactly at the time when you don't have time to run out of gas. And well, that's about recovery. We have to put more energy back in the tank. We should know this for our pastures, our rangeland, for our soils, for our animals, our livestock. And we need to be thinking about it for us as well. So some key words: soils, roots, plants, animals, bodies, spirits. All right. So English poet Alfred Austin. We came from the earth, we return to the earth. In the meantime, we garden. And that feels a little aggish to me. And it also is pretty serious. It is about the earth and it is about us. So bodies, plants, soil, spirit. Probably heard it's not a race. And let's look a little bit at the past. We might have heard of the French Revolution, and that's interesting. Bad joke. A lot of people lost their heads over the French Revolution. Or let's take Joseph Stalin's early socialist Russia. Um, the French Revolution, they hated the monarchy. They hated the church because they were just flat connected. And so they did away with 7 days. They went to a 10-day work week. Russia, through going for the industrial revolution, they wanted to keep everything running 100% all the time. Who reminds me? They had a 5-day revolving work week. So people were taking a day off, they were taking time off, but everything was running all the time and they were pushing it super hard. Uh, okay, they failed. It was the people didn't want it to succeed. Some of those who did, they tried, but they were failures. In Russia, the equipment started breaking down. They didn't take time to maintain it correctly. It systemic. So what actually Napoleon is the one who shut down the 10-day work week and went back to 7 days. And 7 days, it seems to work. And there's a pun intended here, okay? Because let's what do most ag people do? Um, so I had a friend from Wisconsin this summer telling me a story. His dad was lifetime dairyman, and his dad got to go speak at the college and have a question and answer session with the students there. And one of the students asked him, he said, "Well, when was the last time you took a day off?" And his dad had to sit there and he thought about it for a little bit. And he said, "You mean like the whole day?" And that's the whole day. And that's funny until it's sad. And and then we're ag. And we think that's just about the crazy dairymen who are but it's not. That's ag. And that's where we came from. That's that's our normal. So not enough sleep, which means not enough recovery, which means it's not a core value. If it's not a core value for us, then how is recovery a core value for our plants or our soil or our livestock? So way back when these Pharisees were trying to trick Jesus with what's the greatest commandment? And I'm going to paraphrase ridiculously here, but paraphrasing Jesus, the love God, love your neighbor, and love yourself. And if you don't care about yourself, if you don't love yourself enough to rest, enough to recover from the things that you're doing, how can you love your neighbor? How can you love your land or our families? That it's a real question. Here's something you would never know. I'll let you know a secret. Stress wrecks sleep. Yep, I learned that. So, and no sleep exacerbates stress. Exacerbates, big word for makes it worse. So, if we have stress, we don't sleep. If we don't sleep, we have more stress, vicious circle. So, Dr. Matthew Walker wrote this book, Why We Sleep. And here's some interesting facts. 2/3 of adults don't get 8 hours of sleep every night. 2/3. That's globally. Sleep, most effective way to reset our brain and our body. That's it. Sleep is the most effective way to reset our brain and our body. We could meditate, all those things, or we could just sleep. And this one's big. If we really lack of proper sleep is the root cause of all illness. Lack of proper sleep is the root cause of all illness. Okay. Maybe we've heard it's the journey, not the destination. And so look, we're talking about the future though, and we're talking about recovery solutions. Anybody can talk. What can we do to properly recover? And I'll go back to Jesus again. The Pharisees, again, were giving him a hard time. They were picking grain on a Sunday or the Sabbath or something. And Jesus said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And so in this country, we have our unalienable rights and sleep, the right to choose to sleep, the right to choose to rest and recover. That is our right. It's a God-given right. And how do we get there, though? Well, set goals. We've got grazing management, right? I mean, we could go out into the big room here and we're going to go find grazing management software. Most of us have a grazing plan. We have a management plan and goals set. Why? Well, that's how we make money. We want the more recovery for our plants, the more they're going to produce, the more they produce, the more money we can make. It's still energy, but we've got a plan. So I think back in the 90s, we had this really good feed salesman, and he was a bit overweight, and he knew it, and he had a master's in animal nutrition. And that sounds good, but he was way smarter. He knew his stuff, and it wasn't just about animals. He knew how those principles applied to his physiology. But he was stuck eating fast food every day because he was on the road and this and that and other things. We know this stuff. We know how to care for our range. We're trying right now to get better. We know how to take care of our livestock. We know how to take care of ourselves, but how do we get there? Well, we got to come up with a plan. And health management to ensure proper sleep, which we're trying to get proper recovery. And so one big thing, and it sounds simple, but then I'm going to say it because it's so hypocritical. Consistent sleep schedule. Actually go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time. It's a big one. Avoid electronics for bed. There's the thing about blue light. We probably here at home, I've got these blue light lenses. We're watching TV right before we go to bed. Not a good thing. That blue light, that's just telling our brains, wake up, stay awake. And, we need to turn off our phones, and we don't need those in our bedrooms. We need to, here's the flip side of that. We can use our phones or our electronic devices to help us turn off, to shut down, to unplug. There's an app for that actually helps us. It's probably built into your phone if you have one. I'm not saying go get a phone. I'm saying we need to lower our use of technology, especially when we're trying to rest. Manage our rest to get recovery. So, we can take a day off and do a little or nothing. We're probably resting. We can go on a 7-day vacation, and when we get back, we're ready to go. Right? No, usually we're exhausted. So managing our rest to get proper recovery. This one sounds easy. Avoid caffeine and alcohol. Caffeine's not so hard to figure. That keeps you awake. But alcohol, the thing is, it's a depressant and a stimulant. And so that idea that a nightcap, we might go to bed feeling a little lethargic, but the alcohol stimulated our minds. So our rest is way different than it should be. We need to stop asking too much of ourselves psychologically. We're ag, and we're trained to push. If we went through school, we had to pull an all-nighter, and now we're calving. We calved all night. We bragging about those things like they're badges of honor, but we need to see that as maybe destructive behavior. Friends, We need to have friends, friends that we actually talk to. And that's for us and that's for them. So actually talk to and actually listen to. Like, hey, how you doing? Fine. No, I mean, like we need at least two paragraphs, two expanded paragraphs. We're going to have a conversation and talk to each other physically, eye to eye. And yeah, I got to go there. So talking about friends and talking to people, why is the suicide rate for agriculture double that of veterans? And there's no suicide rate we could be proud of besides zero. But for ag, it's double of veterans, and veterans are high risk. This there's other people who talk better about that, but we need to find friends and we need to talk to them and we need to listen to them, and that's definitely good for our rest and for our recovery. So hobbies, we need hobbies, and golf. I don't see how golf would help anyone, but if that's your thing, good. But exercise, getting outside. Oh, I work in ag. Why do I need to get outside? Well, so from the office to the pickup to the tractor, are we, back to those electronic devices? There are apps for that to help us count our steps, count our calories. Are we really getting outside? Are we getting exercise, or are we just working? Um, and getting our feet into the soil is kind of a new thing, which is an old thing. Uh, Take off your composite, man-made rubber, whatever shoes and socks, and get your feet into the soil. And I'm not talking about your brittle environments. I don't want to get stickers and cactuses, not at my house. But I'm thinking more like, go walk out into your lawn and get connected with the earth. One thing I'm looking forward to is taking my shoes off and playing in the sandbox with my grandchildren. It doesn't have to be a chore. Well, when to say no and what to say no to. In Ranching for Profit, one of our big key areas is to create a stop doing list, and then stop doing those things. Why do we have to do everything? There's things we need to say no to and stop doing so that we are able to rest and recover. Yeah, I kind of touched on this, but take a vacation and set aside enough time to recover from it when you get back. Well, as a little bit of a summary. So surviving is not thriving. And it's the same for our range, for our pastures, for our soils. I mean, our soils are damaged, most of them. And how are we going to get them back there? Well, we have to work them, and we also have to let them recover. But if we're going to use these words like sustainability and regenerative, and one of my favorites, stewardship, we need to apply those as principles everywhere in our lives holistically. We've got to set goals for our soil, our range, our livestock, for our mind, for our body, for our spirit, for ourself, for our family, and for our community. Rest for the sake of recovery needs to be a guiding principle. If we're going to throw around those words, sustainable, regenerative, and stewardship, to apply those principles holistically without proper recovery, we're going to lower our production. And if we lower our production, if we don't have proper recovery, we may crash. And if and when we crash, who's going to be there to take care of us? Who's going to be there to take care of our family, our livestock, our range, our soil, or our community? So here's where I want to steal from you guys and take home your answers. How are we going to fix this? What are some goals we can create? I want to have a discussion. Thanks.